The idea that matter is composed of really, really tiny particles dates back to prehistoric times, whether it be the Indian side of the story or the Greek side of the story. Somewhere, you always find a reference in ancient texts, in ancient manuscripts, about indivisible atoms. And the word atom comes from atomio. Uh, Tomio means divisible, 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 and the prefix a stands for not. So an atom is an entity that's not divisible. And while this idea of atomia of an atom dates back to 5th century BC. It was not until the 19th century that a scientist named John Dalton, he was a British school teacher, in 1808, he 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 suggested a model. He proposed a model for the atoms, and in which he said that that matter is composed of indivisible atoms. Matter is composed of indivisible atoms. So what that means that atoms are the smallest entities, and they cannot be divided any further. They are the discrete entities of what the universe is made up of. Second, he said that all atoms in an element. So for an element, you take any element that you might have. So that might be gold, that might be silver, that might be oxygen, that might be any pure substance that's made up of one atom is called an element. And he said that all atoms in an element have identical properties, and by identical, we mean all properties, such as the electrical neutrality, or the mass of the atom, or how they behave in a chemical reaction. And he also said that if you take two different elements, then their atoms would also behave differently, and that makes sense. Um, another conclusion that we can draw from what he proposed was that you can create compounds. When atoms of different elements combine in a fixed ratio. And what that means is you can take any atom, you can take any compound, and one of the most useful compounds on planet Earth is water, and water is H2O. So in H2O, in every entity of H2O, in every particle, in every molecule, there are two hydrogen atoms, there are two H atoms, and there is one O atom, one oxygen atom. So two H atoms and one oxygen atoms. And what Dalton said is that really revolutionary idea that all compounds are made by combining different atoms in fixed ratio, and that also this same theory is also proposed by Joseph Proust in his theory of law of definite proportions. There is one more thing that you can recognize in Dalton's theory, is that he proposed the principle of atomic conservation. That means that atoms cannot be destroyed nor be created. So that means that if you take any, let me just write atomic conservation for now. And by atomic conservation, what I mean is that if you take, let's say, let's take a reaction in which CaCO3 is heated, and certain stuffs are done on it, and and it forms CaO and CO2. I'm not talking anything about the reagents, but what the idea behind this is that if in a entity, if in a molecule, you started out with one C atom, then you would also get one C atom here on the product side as well. If you would have started with, let's say, one Ca atom here on the reactant side, you would get one calcium atom on the product side as well. And you started with three oxygen atoms, so you get one oxygen atom here and two oxygen atoms here. So basically, you are not creating any new atoms in any reaction. All of the universe is composed of atoms, and when they react together, they just form different reorganizations of themselves. They don't create any new atoms, nor are they destroyed. Uh, and However, all of this, as you will see, while it formed the backbone of what modern chemistry is, most of it isn't true now. We know that atom can be divided now, and that will form the idea behind rest of the discussion, as we will talk about atomic structure. So something that Dalton proposed that cannot be divided, scientists in the late 19th and the early 20th century revolutionized the idea, and now atoms have a structure. Atoms are this really interesting topic that we will talk about in the next video. See you in the next one.